Okay, we're going to start Gimel Amud Aleph. And we left off about 8 lines from the top. We're discussing the opinion of Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon had said two brises, two quotations from him. They were contradictory. One was that a mincha that's offered as another mincha is not only is it valid, but the owner fulfilled his obligation. The other brisa said that the owner did not fulfill his obligation. And then we had 3 answers resolving it. The first answer that we were discussing was the answer of Rabbah. Rabbah's answer was that it depends how recognizable it is that what he's saying is not correct. If it's clear that what he's saying is not correct, then we ignore what he's saying and we look at the action. So we said the difference was Shine Kodesh or Shine Bailam. If he changed the type of mincha, then that was recognizable. But if he changed who the owner was, then it's not recognizable. So when we said that a mincha that was brought for the wrong intention, the owner doesn't fulfill his obligation, that was when he changed the owner, because it wasn't recognizable for who it was being brought, and therefore we consider his thoughts as valid, and we accept those thoughts, and therefore the sacrifice the mincha didn't do its job. It was for the wrong person. However, if the mincha was brought for the wrong mincha, the wrong type of pan, you look at the pan. What pan was it in? His thoughts are meaningless. And we just look at the action. That was the answer of Rabbah. So yesterday we asked, on Rabbah, what about an Ayla Sa'if? Or a Chata Sa'if? That it's very clear where it's supposed to be, the blood's supposed to be sprinkled. It's supposed to be, a Chatas is on the bottom, and the Ayla Sa'if is on the top. So if he does a Chata Sa'if for the sake of an Ayla Sa'if, should be, and he does it on the bottom, but he has intention that it's for an Ayla Sa'if, which is meant to be on the top, his intention should be nothing. So we said yes, it's correct. According to Reb Shimon, it's actually correct. His intention is nothing, and the Ayla Sa'if would be valid. Okay, now we're going to start Kodshei Kodashim Sheshachtem Batzafan L'Shem Kodshim Kalem Lirtzu. The line starts B'lei Loifus. Zadat. There's a rule that Kodshei Kodashim sacrifices need to be slaughtered on the north. If someone slaughters a Kodshei Kodashim sacrifice on the north, but he has intention for a Kodshim Kalim, it's very clear that it's not a Kodshim Kalim, slaughtering it on the north. According to this logic, we should ignore his thoughts, consider the sacrifice valid, because of the location where it's being slaughtered. His actions prove that that what he's thinking is not correct. And just like we said yesterday. Liratzu, it should be appeasing to God, and it should help and it should be an appeasement for the owner. It's obvious from his actions that it's Kodshei Kodashim. The Kodshim Kalim, because if it was of the secondary, of lesser holiness, Badarim Habavadlu, he would have slaughtered it on the south. The Gemara says it's not so obvious. Ein Madam Rachmana, say that the merciful one says, which means that Hashem says in the Torah, Af B'Daraim, the sacrifices of lesser holiness don't need to be on the south. You're also allowed to sacrifice it on the south. But if you sacrifice it on the north, it doesn't mean that it's of lesser holiness. You're able to sacrifice it on the south because it's not as holy. It doesn't mean that it's only on the south. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid, I went to the store with my grandmother, and she was showing me, you have to get a kosher symbol, we're Jewish, we have to have a kosher symbol, anyway. So the guy behind me in the line was clearly not Jewish, and he had one of the same items that we had. And I couldn't believe it, because I thought Jewish people keep kosher and non-Jewish people need to keep non-kosher. I didn't know that they were allowed to also. Follow us over here. I didn't consider that fair. It's got to be.
This is like a black woman in the line of the cashier about the candies, and she's telling the kid, it's not kosher. So the guy who's a Jewish is asking, are you Jewish? No, but I see that when you say it's not kosher, the children don't eat it. So I want to try it with my kid.
Very cute. That's cute. That's very cute. It's not the phrase. There's a little bit more to it, though. So over here we're saying that just because it's of lesser holiness doesn't mean that it's only on the south. It can also be on the south, but if you do it on the north, that's also fine. So the fact that he's slaughtering a sacrifice on the north with intention of a sacrifice of lesser holiness does not prove that that's not correct. It could be it is of lesser holiness. Does the Torah say that you have to do it on the south and you can't do it on the north? It was taught in the Mishnah. You can slaughter it anywhere in the courtyard. Right? Which means that it's kosher anywhere. Okay, next question. It's sort of obvious what's coming up. Kachim kalim sheshachtam badarim l'shem kachi kachim. Let's say you have a sacrifice of lesser holiness that's slaughtered on the south with the intention of a holy sacrifice. Where does the holy sacrifice need to be slaughtered? On the north. It's very obvious from his actions that it's not kachi kadashim, because he's slaughtering it on the south. Here he does not have that option of slaughtering it on the south if it's kachi kadashim. And his thoughts are that it is kachi kadashim. So his thoughts are obviously incorrect, and we should just follow his actions. Liratzu. It should be an appeasement to God for him. Ma'aseyam meichichem aleim. His actions prove kachim kalim ninu, that it's of secondary holiness. The kachi kadashim, because if it's the very holy, batzafan havi avadlu, he would have done it on the north. So here is where the Gemara throws us off. This confuses everything. The Gemara says, Amri will say, Kachi Kadashim Ninu, that really it is Kachi Kachim. So why is he doing it on the south? But he's violating the rule. And he's slaughtering it on the south. How do you know that it really is Kachi Kadashim? You could say that he's violating the rule. And he's slaughtering a Kachi Kadashim on the south. So the whole time, this throws everything off, because the whole time we kept saying that if a person is doing an action and his thoughts are differently, you follow the action, and the sacrifice or the mincha should be good, because his action proves. And we were going along the lines that it was meant to be the way he's performing it. His thoughts are different, so ignore the thoughts, because the actions prove what it really is. Now we're saying that it's very possible that his actions are in violation of what his thought is. Really, it's supposed to be the way his thoughts are, and the actions are just a violation of the rules of the way it's supposed to be, which is the way his thoughts are. In other words, the actions don't prove against the thoughts; The actions, it's possible that the thoughts are real, and the action is just a violation. That messes up the whole answer. As you're going to see, this is going to create a problem.
Yeah, but we learned in the last Gemara that it's all about the thought. Because if he had in his mind to take it out of the base of Mikdash or not.
We did learn that it's the thoughts make a big difference. Now we're going in the opinion of Reb Shimon, that's Reb Shimon according to Rabbah, that the actions are what determines. The problem is that we've just thrown in this wrench that the actions don't really tell me, because it could be the actions are a violation. The Gemara says, Yihachi, if you're going to say so, that the actions could be a violation. So let's go back to our original case. Machavas l'shem marcheshes nami. If someone brings a mincha in a flat pan, in a wide pan, and he has intention that it's for a deep, narrow pan. Okay, so his intentions are invalidating the sacrifice. So Reb Shimon said that it's not a problem, because we're going to follow not his thoughts, we're going to follow the action. And it's going to be a flat pan mincha, right? This that he's doing kamitza on it for a deep pan, Amar, Hai b'marcheshes nadar. We'll say that really he vowed to bring a marcheshes, a deep pan. And this, that his actions are that he's bringing it in a flat pan. Really the marcheshesi. Really it's supposed to be a marcheshes. And he's just violating the rule. And he's bringing it in the wrong pan. And we kept saying before that we should ignore his thoughts because his actions are what determines it. But it's very possible that his thoughts are what's correct. And his actions are just in violation of that. The Gemara answers, this is interesting. It's really not such a problem. We can still follow Reb Shimon's ruling, that we're going to follow the action. But it's slightly different. It gets modified here. Hassam over there, Kinami b'marcheshes nadar, even if we say that he vowed for the way his thoughts are. Let's say that was the question is, we have someone bringing a mincha. He has two things that's going on here that are telling me that it's different, that are confusing me. One is that he's bringing it in a flat pan, and the other one is that he's doing kamitza saying that it's a deep pan. Doing this intention of a mincha of a deep pan. So how did he vow? What was his vow? So we were going to follow the whole time that it's a flat pan, and he vowed a flat pan, that it should be in a, and we ignore the thoughts. We're saying that how do you know that's the case? Maybe he really vowed that it should be according to the thoughts, and the fact that he's bringing the flat pan is just a violation. And now we don't know. We said, oh, maser mechichen. It's action. It's the way it's brought proves what it really is. Not necessarily. Maybe his thoughts are accurate, and the way he's bringing it is just a violation. He's doing a sloppy job. He's bringing it in the wrong pan. So the solution to this is that let's say he really vowed that it should be in a marcheshes, in a deep pan, and that's consistent with his thoughts. However, Reb Shimon holds that ki ma'aseh b'machavas machas havya. It becomes a machavas. What Reb Shimon is saying is that the way you bring it, that's what it becomes. That's not only does it determine what you vowed, but even if you didn't vow that, the way you bring it, that's what it is. So now the action is really going to take over, and the thoughts are going to be inconsistent with the action, with the way he's doing it, then the thoughts are going to be nothing. Kibitanan, as it was taught in a Mishnah, if someone takes a vow, says he vows on himself a mincha in a flat pan, vehevi b'marcheshes, but he brings it in a deep pan. That's no good, right? B'marcheshes, he vows to bring it to bring a deep pan. Vehevi b'machavas, but he brings it in a flat pan. Mashehevi hevi, whatever he brought, that's the way he brought it. V'yidei nidre layotza, but he doesn't fulfill his vow. But the mincha is still acceptable. Why didn't he fulfill his vow? Because the vow was he accepted on himself to bring a certain mincha, and he didn't bring it.
So he has to bring
brought the different one.
He has to bring that mincha again?
He has to bring the correct one. He brought the wrong one, right? He vowed to bring a certain mincha, and he brought a different one. So, very nice, he brought the other one, but now fulfill the vow of that you vowed, which is to bring the other one. But the mincha is still good. V'dilma amar zulahavi b'machavas ve'evi b'marcheshes. He said, 1 second. We can tell it. We have a problem here, because when does he have to bring another mincha? If he said, "I accept upon myself to bring a mincha in a flat pan, but I brought a mincha in a deep pan," so the mincha in the deep pan is good, but I didn't fulfill the vow of the flat pan, so you have to bring another one to fulfill. But let's say I said that this flour here is meant to be brought in a flat pan. I didn't say I'm accepting on myself. I'm saying that I'm designating this flour to be in a flat pan. And it's brought in a deep pan. Then it's a problem. Kiditnan, as it was taught in the Mishnah, Zul havi b'machavas, vehevi b'marcheshes. If he vows to bring this flour in a flat pan, but he brings it in a deep pan, b'marcheshes, or he vows to bring in a deep pan, this, vehevi b'machavas, and he brings it in a flat pan, harezu psula. It's not valid. So that means that the action doesn't determine what it is, because there's still a vow that you have to take into account. What was the original vow? And if the action is inconsistent with the vow, it's invalid. So how could Reb Shimon just say, "Oh, you just look at the action, and the action proves what it is"? There's a vow that has to be taken into account, and it's possible that the vow is consistent with his thoughts, but not consistent with his action, right? And so therefore now it's unclear which one wins, the thoughts or the action, because there's still a vow that needs to be taken into account. So the Gemara responds, "L'Rabbanan hachinami." All the proofs that you just brought me is very nice, but it's the wrong opinion. That's according to the Rabbanan, that say that if there's a vow in the background, that could make the mincha invalid if it's the wrong type of pan. However, Reb Shimon, according to Reb Shimon's opinion, even the Reb Shimon holds af yedei nidra yatza. Reb Shimon holds not only is the mincha that's brought inconsistent with his thoughts, not only is it is it a valid mincha, but it even satisfies his vow. So according to him, Alma kviyusa demana v'lei klumhu. We don't care about what he vowed, which pan it's going to be brought in. According to Reb Shimon, even if you vowed to bring it in a machavas, you still fulfill the obligation of bringing the carbon mincha if you bring it in a marcheshes, in a deep pan. So therefore, v'loishna amar zu, v'loishna amar alai, it doesn't matter if he said this or if he said upon me. It doesn't matter what type of vow it was. He accepts on himself, or if he designates the flour. Either one, he fulfills, the mincha is valid, he fulfills his vow, and the fact that he had other thoughts doesn't matter, because the way that he brings it is the way that it is. The only one point over here, which is very confusing, is that we did not say that this was Reb Shimon's opinion. What's coming out here is the Gemara is modifying Reb Shimon's opinion to the extent, it's not that I'm looking at the action and that's the determining factor over the thoughts. Reb Shimon doesn't care about which pan it is. He's saying the pan doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. That's what it sounds like, right? And it's modifying. That wasn't what we were originally discussing. Originally discussing action versus thought. Now it's he vowed to bring in a deep pan, and he's bringing in a flat pan. He said, "Oh, he still fulfilled his obligation of the vow because he brought a mincha, and it doesn't matter which pan." Right? That's yes. The conclusion is going to be the same, but the theme here is slightly. It's not exactly what we were discussing. Okay, anyway.
Reb Shimon holds this by all kavanas?
No. Reb Shimon says it by a mincha. Now, the interesting thing is, the Gemara before told us that we're going to need to accept this by a chata sa'if. That's brought on the bottom because the actions are going to prove that it's a chata sa'if because it's brought on the bottom, even though he has thoughts that it's an oila sa'if. You follow this? So according to what we're saying now, it's not so perfect because we're saying that the pan doesn't matter according to Reb Shimon, but that wasn't the Gemara's conclusion before with the chata sa'if. It wasn't a pan difference. It was the action proves, right? How did we get out of that action? That the action proved. How did we dissolve that theory? Because we said, how does action prove? Maybe he's violating the rules. So how will we then explain the chatas that we said would be acceptable, even though his thoughts are of an oila, but because he's doing it on the bottom, it needs to be a chatas. So Rashi asks that question. It's a Rashi in Loishna. See Rashi didn't ask Loishna. That's in the middle. It says Vikasha. The Rashi says that over there he's doing two prohibitions. A very interesting Rashi. Rashi says that the Gemara threw into this that maybe he's just doing a violation, and his thoughts are really correct. His actions are wrong. How do you know that the actions are the significant? So Rashi says that that's only if we can say that he's only doing one violation, then we don't know if the actions are stronger than the thoughts, because maybe he's violating, and really his thoughts are correct. But if the actions would be two violations, a double violation, then we're going to say, better to say that the actions are correct and the thoughts are nothing, rather than to give him, to attribute two violations to his actions. And by the chatas there would be two violations. One because the chatas has hazah, has the sprinkling, the oila just has the squeezing, and also the chatas is on the bottom, and the oila is on the top. If it would be an oila, he would be doing the sprinkling and the wrong location. So we don't say that that's a violation. We say his actions are correct, and just ignore the thoughts. All right? Sounds like we've done the hard part. Almost. Elamayata. Rather, according to what we're saying, Mayata means from now, but it means according to what we just said. Oyla sheshachat l'shem chatas tirtzeh. Someone slaughters an oyla, and he has intention that it's a chatas. It should be a good sacrifice. Now, both of them are holy, and they should be slaughtered on the north. So that's not going to be determining which sacrifice it is. We said that we're dealing with an oila, it's a burnt offering, but his intention by the shechita was that it was a sin offering. And according to Reb Shimon, if we could prove from his actions what it really is, that it's an oila, then that should be a kosher sacrifice, right? If we can prove it. Why? How could we prove it? The high zachar v'hai nekeva, because an oila is a male offering and the chatas is a female offering, is a female animal, and so we look at the animal. But we see that it's a male offering. It's a male animal. So it's got to be an oila. So let's just ignore the thoughts, because we see what it is. And Reb Shimon says, you ignore the thoughts if the actions can prove it. So the Gemara says, Kiven de kasar nasi de zacherhu la yediyah. It's possible there is one sacrifice that's a chatas. It's when the king does a aveira. He brings a chatas. His chatas is a male offering. So I don't know. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that type of chatas. So, but however, let's say when he's bringing the oila, he doesn't say a chatas. He's more specific. He says l'shem chatas yachid. He says for an individual's chatas, that needs to be a female, but he's bringing a male, and it's supposed to be an oila. He says that it's a chatas, but I could look at the animal and see that it's a male. It has to be an oila. Ma'ikal meimer. What are you going to say then? Besu, the Gemara throws in another question. Chatas yachid sheshachta l'shem oila. Say the opposite. Let's say I have a female chatas yachid, and while he's shechting it, he has intention that it's a male burnt offering. It's impossible. It can't be an oila. It's a female. So just ignore the thoughts, according to Reb Shimon. Tirtza should be an appeasement. Why? The chatas nekeva v'oila zachar, because the chatas is female and the oila is a male. The Gemara says mechasya ba'alya. You can't tell that it's a female because it has a big fat tail. The sheep that's being brought has this tail that covers the back of the animal. You can't tell what type of what gender the animal is. So the actions don't really prove it to the onlooker. Gemara says kapsa. That makes sense if he's bringing a sheep. But I see seira mayikalameimar. But let's say he's bringing a female goat. Goats do not have fat tails, so it's going to be quite obvious to the onlooker that it's a female animal, and therefore it needs to be a chatas, because the chatas you have the option of a sheep or a goat. Ella bein zchom l'nekeva slavadai dinchi. Rather, we have to say that when we're dealing with the gender of the animal, people don't notice that, and therefore the action is not going to be determinant what it is. Now, we threw in something here that I wasn't, when we learned it before, we weren't specific about this. Now it's saying that it's the opinion of someone that's watching that's going to make a difference. We were thinking that it's not the opinion of the guy that's people surrounding. We were thinking that it was what is it clearly, what is he doing? It's like from God's perspective. He's doing a certain action, and he has other thoughts. Which one should be stronger? The action should be stronger, and the thoughts should just be nothing. Not because of onlookers, can they recognize, will they not? Now it seems, you see, that would be good if this was all some rabbinic decree that, we don't want anyone to say that he's doing this and it's the wrong thing, and but if people can tell, then it's not a big deal. It sounds like we've just turned this into a rabbinic decree. That's what. Okay. Let's see further. Pesach sheshachta l'shem Hashem l'ertzei. Korban Pesach that's slaughtered for the sake of an Hashem, a guilt offering. It should be an appeasement. It should be a satisfactory sacrifice. Why? The high ben shana, a high ben shtayim. Because the Korban Pesach is 1 year old. The guilt offering is 2 years old. The Korban Pesach is very young. The significance of the prohibition not to break the bones is because it really is young. It's born right before the season when they give birth is right before Pesach. So it's very young, and it's in its first year. But an Asham is 2 years old. So you can tell. Asham is a bigger animal. So it's clear that it's not an Asham, it's clear that it's a Pesach. because his actions can prove it. Well, you have a little bit of a problem, because there are 2 guilt offerings that are also brought that young. So the fact that he brought it for a guilt offering, and it's a young sheep, doesn't prove, because it could be it's one of those guilt offerings that are brought with young sheep. Which ones? A Nazir and a Metzora. They bring these guilt offerings. Okay, so the Gemara says, okay, Amal Asham Gazelas al Sham Asham Eilis. Let's see, he's specific about which Asham he's bringing it for. Incorrectly. He's bringing it, it's supposed to be a Pesach. And he has intention that it's for an Asham Gazelas, for someone that stole and swore. Or Me'ilah, someone that had personal benefit from something that belongs to the temple. What are you going to say then? Asham Gazelas are 2 years old. Asham Eilis is 2 years old. Kon Pesach is in its first year. It's very clear which sacrifice it is. V'su, Asham Gazelas, Asham Eilis, Shachlan Asham Pesach. Do it the opposite. Say that you slaughtered a 2-year-old and you had intention for a carbon Pesach. It's obvious that it's not a Pesach because it's 2 years old. Lirtu, it should be a good sacrifice. The Pesach ben Shanim, Hani ben Shtei Shtanim, because the Pesach is 1 year and these are 2 years old. Ella ben Shanim ben Shtei Shanim lava daita denshi. Rather, the Gemara says you can't determine by the age. You can't tell how old the animal is. Why? Dika ben Shana de Mechzik ben Shtayim, Bika ben Shtayim de Mechzik ben Shana. Because it could be that there's a 2-year-old that looks like a 1-year-old, and a 1-year-old looks like a 2-year-old. They're the opposite. There was this, I used to give a class, a tiny class in Bell Harbor. There was this lady that would come in, and she would say, do you know how old I am? I'm 90. And then say, oh, really? You're 90? If you're 90, you look good. She says, really, I'm 70, but I want people to say I look good, so I say I'm 90. And then say, oh, for 90, you look good. So the animals, the animals are, you can't tell how old it is if it's a year old or 2 years old. So therefore, it's not a determining factor against his thoughts. That he has thoughts that it's one sacrifice and really it's a different sacrifice. The age is not going to determine that. Okay, Sar sheshachtu l'shem Hashem. Let's say there's a goat that's shechted for an asham. It's a chatas.